Brrch, brrch, brrch. Well, here we are at the dinner table, and I've got a really interesting story. I woke up the other morning and I headed to the bathroom and I was barefoot, and all of a sudden I looked down on the floor and there was a scorpion in the middle of the bathroom floor, and it was tail up and it was like ready to attack. And I was barefoot. And the thing is it was the first time I've seen a scorpion. Like, I've seen some dead ones, and my mom has said she's seen them, and I know they're out here. But since we've been out here, I haven't really seen any scorpions. They haven't been a thing. And so I looked down at that scorpion and I said, okay, I see you. I feel you. I hear you. I went over to Joe's closet. I got a shoe out of his closet. I smashed the scorpion. I picked it up with some toilet paper. I flushed it in the toilet. And then I walked off and didn't think anything more about it. Exactly. Yeah.
Unanswered questions.
So there might be a lot of unanswered questions that we come to today. But last week's unanswered question was actually about some more stuff about Joe's adoption. Well, clearly, we're not going to have answered questions about Joe's adoption today because Joe's not at the dinner table. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. The first thing I want to talk about is having dinner alone the other night. There was a couple of nights that went by and I was eating some leftovers and then it was, okay, I've got to make myself some dinner. And so I was like, okay, it's been a really long time. And I've been telling everybody, that I haven't been eating dinner or that I haven't been cooking dinner. I mean, that's been clear on the podcast. And so I get in the kitchen and I start figuring out what I'm going to do. I take out some of that wild ground pork. We've been talking about the fact that we've had wild ground pork. I've been pulling that out of the freezer and putting it out. And I decided that I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make a stir fry. And that's another funny thing because people that listen to the podcast know that like stir fries are not really my favorite thing, especially when they're like super, I don't know, soy saucy and with them like, I don't know, flour in them or something like that. And actually, this was an AIP approved pork stir fry. And it did call for arrowroot flour, but I actually didn't add it in because I think that's one of the things about like an Asian stir fry that I'm not a fan of is kind of the thicker gravy like style of sauce. And so I did my own way. I did it a little bit differently. I made a pork stir fry, ground pork with broccoli from the garden, carrots that I shredded up, mushrooms, onions. I shredded up some Brussels sprouts and some celery. So I basically used whatever vegetables I had with the pork that I had. I didn't even make myself any kind of like starch or like, cauliflower rice or pasta or anything like that. I just ate it just like that. And it was actually a little bit dry, if I have to admit. Like it might have been a little bit overcooked. But I was at the dinner table alone, talking to myself. Or maybe actually, I think I might have been like fiddling on social media or who knows what I was doing that night. Probably wandering in my thoughts about like a million different things, not even really knowing exactly what to think about. And so that was the first night, the first cooking night at the dinner table. And clearly, again, the dinner table is a little bit different. A few unanswered questions here are going to come up next week, I think, or the next time we do the podcast. But the thing that I've learned over the last week is that I'm never really alone. And my friend Jennifer, who is Jennifer helped us out tonight with a few of the sound effects. Jennifer knows the podcast pretty well.
I like it.
Yeah.
I listen all the time, so yes.
Yeah. So she's like, oh, the sounds. We need the sounds. How do we get the sounds? And I'm like, I don't know how to do the sounds. I mean, because clearly I'm here by myself doing this podcast now. And so
I listen in the shower, to be honest. So I do the sound effects in the shower
You're
with
already
y'all.
doing them?
Yes.
So now she's got the sound effect action going on for me over here, and I mean, you're never really alone at the dinner table. The dinner table talk always is a place for friends to show up, and our friends show up, regularly all week long. And so I didn't not honestly not expect my friends to show up at the dinner table, literally, and here at the podcast today too.
Figuratively,
All of it.
we're all here.
We're all here. Yeah. So Jennifer came down today to spend the evening with me, and we ended up making a pasta primavera, which was a very nice experience.
Delicious.
But again, I'm in the kitchen and it's been years
Learning,
learning again.
relearning.
And again, it's not that I hadn't cooked, and it wasn't that I didn't cook before Joe and I got together. I cooked all the time, but we made a transition, and it had a lot to do with like the kiddos, and his daughter just wasn't really that interested in eating some of the things I was cooking, and so he just kind of took over that, and it just kind of ended up sticking that way, especially because of like division of labor. Like I needed help.
It works out.
Yeah, it worked out, and he was really good at it, and he liked it, and he's creative, and so that was a place that it made sense for him too. Um, but I get in there with some pasta primavera, and what gives me the idea is, well, first of all, my mom had said my mom's trying to help like any way she can possibly help, and she's already like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to use the Instant Pot. And I was like, well, truly, one of the most challenging parts of cooking for me is cooking meat. But my mom was like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to use the Instant Pot. This is not a big deal. You're going to cook a chicken. It's going to go from frozen to cooked in the Instant Pot. And we go over there to her house before we get ready to cook. And she's like giving me a whole like demonstration.
The Instapot is amazing.
Yeah, it was really nice. In 60 minutes, we went and walked around the farm and I showed you around and everything. We cooked a chicken from frozen to cooked. And then while we were out there walking around at the farm, I showed off my beautiful squash, and there were plenty of squash for me to harvest. So at that point, I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me think about this. I've got chicken. We've got these beautiful little squash. I know that I have some nice celery. I've got some kale. I've got some broccoli. And I've also got some leftover mushrooms. I've got lots of onions coming out of the garden, and I'll throw in some garlic. Let's make some kind of like pasta primavera.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of herbs can we use? Like, what are the right kind of herbs that we can use this week? And of course, my cilantro salt is something that I make regularly and had just made a new batch of because I've got a lot of overgrown cilantro and coriander and stuff going on in the gardens right now. So it ended up being really good.
It was great.
Yeah, just, quick instant pot chicken. You picked the chicken. I stir fried.
I shredded and cooked the pasta, the AIP approved
Yeah, yeah, that
pasta,
jovial
grain
spaghetti.
free.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I thought this was the best part, you guys. I'm in there and I'm like throwing all the vegetables into the cast iron, right?
Yeah.
I think you said something like, "When was the last time you cooked a stir fry?" I was like, "Jennifer, clearly I haven't cooked in a long time." She's like, "Well, there's like an order you need to do this in."
That's right. I look over and you got all the green stuff in there with the onions. I was like, oh, wait, green stuff goes in last. Green
Like,
stuff goes in. Put those mushrooms in there.
make sure we get the mushrooms in there. So it's kind of the same. If I go back to the pork stir fry, I probably would have overcooked it and made it a little dry. But again, I got to get that touch back. I also know that I need to remember to let the cast iron get really hot first
Right.
before I start throwing stuff in, because I want stuff to like fry and like cook, quickly.
Sizzle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But man, all we put was those vegetables. We didn't even use a recipe. We put vegetables, cilantro salt, and we used those noodles, and we had the chicken, and the chicken didn't have any flavoring on it. And
Right.
that stuff was great, wasn't it?
We just cooked the chicken with
Yeah.
water in the
Mhm.
instant pot. It was
Mhm.
great. The flavor of vegetables can't beat fresh veggies.
Amazing.
It was great.
The little tiny baby broccoli florets, but also the leaves, of course, leaves from celery, all of that stuff. And we were talking about that again today, this morning at my coffee talk with my parents. We were talking about just like nutrient dense foods. And I was kind of explaining that to everyone, like, or I was explaining that to my dad, to like, when people are eating, supplements that are known to have different types of, these are only made with vegetables, right? And I said, okay, but the important thing that we have to understand is like, even like the oil companies, like when we use doTERRA oil or whatever, the quality, the nutrient density of the vegetables that they're getting or the plants that they're getting is important. And the way that I used to explain it to him is a good way to, talk to you guys about it too. And he takes a thing called a Brix meter out to the grapes, and a Brix meter tests the Brix level, the sugar level. So, like, are these going to be really
Oh,
sweet and delicious grapes to use for our wine, right? Well, we need, and I know that there's meters and I know that there's science to do the same thing with nutrient density of foods. But I mean, you almost need to be able to like do it here on the farm. But I can tell you that just the flavor alone, like I can eat a vegetable straight out of the garden fresh and I can taste the salt in it. I can taste the flavor of just
right.
it. I can taste it tastes good. That celery has like such a pungent flavor and smell, and celery that you eat at the grocery store doesn't really
There's no
have a ton of
comparison.
flavor. It's crazy the difference in that. So that was really nice to be able to throw my vegetables together. We also made a really pretty salad. I liked this because I was like, "Oh man, I wish I had some lettuce." And I was like, "What the hell am I talking about? I'm literally gonna walk outside to the garden right now." And I walked up the garden, I snipped several little bundles of lettuce. I snipped some nasturtium flower, some nasturtium leaves, some arugula leaves, came back in, cut up a carrot, cut up a cucumber, cut up some radishes, threw together a salad. So we had a nice salad to go with it.
Tasty and beautiful.
And I wasn't alone at the dinner table.
No,
No, it was really nice.
friends at the table.
Yeah. So someone is clearly not here. And the best way that I can say that is that not every story was being told honestly at the dinner table. And I don't want to go into that a whole lot. I think that maybe those of you that have been listening for a long time, you might already know a little bit about it. You might have guessed from the last couple of weeks that clearly something challenging was going on. Um, I want to ask that everyone just hold our entire family and everyone at the dinner table in their prayers
Mm,
as we get through and work through. I don't even know how to explain it. Just something really challenging, something really adverse.
life.
Life. Yeah, life. I have tried extremely hard to be very, very authentic at the dinner table. That when I tell a story, I tell the story to the best that I can with an understanding of privacy for the family, and I've said that before, like, when we first opened the podcast at the very beginning, way back in the beginning, I said that there's something you have to understand about we're gonna put out a podcast that's very public about our life, but we also have to understand that people have to feel safe to come to the dinner table and talk to us. Well, this is a perfect example of that, and there's parts of stories that, weren't ready to be told, that aren't ready to be told today, and, that's about all I have to say about that. But what I do wanna talk about is what has been talked about at the dinner table, and that is, how do I move forward? And
Yes.
at the dinner table now, it's just Aislynn, and that's a strange thing to figure out, and at the farm, not it's not just Aislinn at the farm because I'm never alone, but in terms of this home and how I make choices for how I move forward over the next couple of weeks with, um, the whole house, everything going on at the house, it's all been very, um, it's been step by step, one day at a time. Be patient with myself.
That's right.
Going to sleep at night has not been easy,
Mm-mm.
but waking up in the morning has gotten easier every day.
It's a new day.
Every day. This morning is really interesting because I set an alarm. I do this thing because I've been trying for a couple of years to really get my life on track, and the podcast listeners know that. Like, it's been a string of conversations for the last 3 years since we've been doing this podcast that I have been actively changing my life
It's
since the beginning of this podcast.
a journey.
Yeah, and, I set my alarm clock every morning at 5:30 AM it goes off, and then it goes off again at 6 AM, and it goes off at 6:30 AM, and 6:30 AM is like the last bell, like, this is the one that you
You're
have
gonna
to get
be
up.
late.
Yeah, you're gonna be late to your day, right? And
Yeah,
I don't have anywhere to go, but I'm gonna be late to my day.
right.
And but I find myself some mornings waking up before that. Some mornings, especially when I was really comfortable, I would sleep sometimes a little bit later than that. If it was a weekend, I would always sleep a little bit later than that. But it gave my body like a biological clock that began to like set itself. And well, over the last week, I have not been sleeping well through the night. I've been waking up with a crick in my neck. I have been waking up at like 4:30 a.m. or 5 a.m. and just kind of laying there and doing a lot of meditating and praying, a lot of praying. It's been so much. Every thought that comes out of my mouth is in prayer, even when I'm angry. I'm like, "Grah," and then, okay, breathe and, deal with it. But every thought that every thought that goes through my mind is a prayer. So of course, the first thing when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, God, tell me what to do today. Okay, tell me how to handle this today. This morning, 5:30 a.m. went off and I was snoozing real good. And I
Mm,
just went, no thanks, I don't need you. And then 6 a.m. came and I went, no thanks, I don't need you. And then 6:30 a.m. came and I was like, damn, it's Saturday morning and I really literally don't have to get up. I am so okay right now. I am so okay. And that felt so freaking good.
that's good to hear.
I got up, I went and carried the chickens all over from, I mean, and these are things that I was like doing with, I wasn't necessarily doing, or I was helping, or Joe was taking care of them. But, like, I went over and I got the chickens out of the extra chicken tunnel, and I put them back in their crate, and I brought them over, and I fed the chickens, and I changed the rabbit water and fed the rabbits, and got all that stuff taken care of. And then I went over and had tea with my parents. They drink coffee, I drink tea. And then I was like, well, somebody's got to mow because this was the weekend we were going to mow. So I get out there and I push with the push mower. About that time, my cousin Jessica shows up because she has texted me this week and says, no questions asked, I am on my way. I will be there Saturday morning. So she shows up, and, the day has just gone like that, and the week has gone like that. I've had clients, customers.
We love you, Aislinn.
It's it's been kind of miraculous.
Your tribe is here to support you.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm grateful for all of you that showed up here at the dinner table. Again, I'm sure you're probably all many of you are very, very curious about, what was going on. If you don't follow me already on some of the other social media platforms, or you might have already seen there was clearly something going on in my life. If you're just a listener here at the podcast, you might be interested to go check it out and find me online, find my social media, and then, follow me a little bit closer as to what the day to day, or how I'm dealing with it day to day. I mean, some days are really, really bad and some days are really sad. And I expect that as I heal and as I move forward, I'm still going to have to deal with the grieving process.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just,
It's a new journey.
yeah. And it does feel a little bit like a death, especially as
Mhm.
big, big a people as we were, and as big a personalities as we were, and as public as our life was, to be able to go through this. I think I really value being authentic, and even in the hard times. And I think that while some people get in the car and drive to their friends and spend the night with them, other people share their story in a way that helps other people go, I can deal with this too. If someone can deal with this and say it that publicly, then I can deal with it too.
Amen, sister.
Yeah, so I think we all have our own way of being empathic for other people, and this is my way of doing it. It always kind of has been my way, and I've just gotten better at it. And I'm really like excited to be here, actually recording the podcast right now, and hoping that something really good comes out of this, and I figure out how to move forward with something like this. Now, I don't really know whether the dinner table will continue, because the dinner table isn't what it was before.
Right.
It's just Aislinn. So I don't know exactly how I'll move forward with it. I like the idea of bringing friends to the dinner table and
Yeah,
having friends at my dinner table and not having to eat alone all the time. I can't imagine that I would ever do that. The funny thing about me is that the dinner table was me. Like the dinner table was Aislinn brings friends to the dinner table. That's how the dinner table happened. That's how we did it. And so
there you go. Aislinn brings friends to the dinner table.
she always has, like, always has, and having a table full of kids, it was me saying, "We need to sit at the dinner table and have a dinner and have a meal together," and then, you know, the conversations I appreciated, I always and still appreciate the things that Joe brought to the table because, he brought the table topics ideas and the games and just really the conversations and just, getting things started in a good conversation. It was always really good with the kids that we started, and the dinner table was always that a good place to just middle ground and meet
For
and
sure.
have good graceful conversations. So I hope that we'll be able to do that.
For sure.
I know for sure the things that are going to be going on in my life that are going to continue is that I'm going to do my lives on Sunday. Those will be different too because that was a partnership as well. Joe helped me out with those as well. But tomorrow, Jennifer's going to help me with that. So, yeah, I mean, that's friends that are stepping up in all different ways because I think the things I'm doing socially and publicly are seem to be important.
Very important.
And so I think that people are stepping up to help because they want to see that continue and also probably have enough belief and faith in me that I'll figure it out with a little bit of help.
That's right. And, you know, just Aislinn, that's enough.
Yeah.
It's enough.
It is interesting. It's a strange manifestation.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
really. Also, I have Mondays at the farm, which that's the thing with garden healing that I've talked about several weeks in a row. And we do garden healing in the morning and garden healing in the afternoon, and we have lunch together. And so, if you want to support me and you want to get to have a face to face conversation where you get to hear, you know, that I'm not always like perfect and ideal and things, cuss words come out of my mouth and I'm angry about things but if you want to get a person to person face to face conversation with me, a good place to do that is where you can get your hands in the dirt with me in the garden and come out and visit me at the farm. So come out on a Monday. If you need more information about that, just send me an email or send me a social media message or whatever. Just get in touch with me and I'll give you some more details about it. So that's going to be going on. Of course, if you're coming out for lunch, especially now, bring BYO, bring your own, because I'm penny pinching a little bit. But on that penny pinching note, if you have ever really wanted to support me, well, one, you could support the podcast. That's still a thing that's up there and available. And the second thing is you can support my coaching or consulting if you've ever wanted some help with coaching or consulting. That's a way that you could get involved with me as well. Of course, I'm also going to be selling my flowers and my vegetables, and all of that stuff is going to be available. So be sure to check that stuff out. Um, and I'm appreciative of you coming down here, Jennifer,
Thanks.
making the trip down here. It means a lot to me. It was something I had to look forward to was spending the evening with you. And you've been along for the ride, maybe a little differently than other people because I have shared with you very openly about how I was feeling about things and how I could see some challenges,
Right.
really hard challenges that were coming,
Right.
and that I didn't think things were getting necessarily better.
Mhm.
And, so it's been really good to have you there during that time, but also have you here because we could kinda go back through some of the things and I could explain that that's why I thought that, and you could say, "Well, that's what yeah, and we saw this,"
Yeah.
and of course, you're listening to the podcast regularly too,
Right.
which means you're getting to hear, and you also have a relationship with Joe, so you've reached out to him and
Mhm.
had some time to talk to him as well, and
Mhm.
so you're being there for us as friends and giving
Mhm.
your love and prayers and wellness. You're sharing your wellness with us,
Right.
and that's an important part of how we help our friends
That's right.
stay in wellness.
Yeah. We're all still friends.
Yeah. So you wanna do a random question with me? Because 'Cause we're
Sure.
trying our best to keep this on the
Okay.
the script.
Let's do it. I don't remember the sound from this.
I don't either. Is there a sound?
Mm, there's got to be.
There must be. There was always a sound. Do you need me to scream, by the way? I've been hearing that I scream at the You
There
can add that in at the
okay,
end.
no, that's enough. That's
On
enough
that
for me.
note, what's the most scared you've ever been?
Scared, ooh, I'm not one to get scared easily, like, maybe surprised, like, "Ooh, boo," like that, but, scared.
Do you get scared of, like, jumping out of an airplane or heights or spiders? No, you don't get scared of
Well,
spiders, but
yeah, no, heights, not my thing.
yeah,
Definitely not my thing.
yeah,
Get a little, queasy,
yeah,
you know, nervous, like, get me away from the edge.
yeah. I have that feeling, like a sense of like I could fall. Like I have that
Yeah,
like drop out stomach feeling. I get
yeah,
that. I get that.
that's pretty much it for me.
I think making major life changes is the biggest scares that I've ever faced, and I've done it more than once.
Yeah,
I'm not super fearful. I make a lot of like scary choices that most people wouldn't make.
yeah,
I would say I said recently this thing that I'm going through and the choice that I made with this is the hardest thing I've ever been through.
sure,
But then I also said I've never been through this before, and so that's scary. Like taking a step on a new journey of something you've never been through before.
right,
Being alone is a
yeah,
big deal because I've never been alone. Like I went from being at home with my parents to living with a roommate during a short time in college to married with a kid to divorced for a very short amount of time to in a relationship with a house full of kids again. I just don't have I have very little experience in, like,
I think you might
being
like
alone.
it,
I think I might like it too. I'm kind
right?
of getting every day it feels better. Every
Yes,
day it feels better.
yes.
So, all right, guys, thank you for joining me at the dinner table, and this isn't gonna be edited because I'm not a producer, I'm a content creator. So you get the content and you get the funny little sounds that Jennifer made for me. Thank you.
Brrch, brrch, brrch.